Welcome back, everyone, to All About America's Team, brought to you by Delahanty Media. And we are back after a good break. Regardless of how the Cowboys have played the last few weeks, they have a bye, and now they get to kick off the second half of the season, as do us. I'm Ray Nicken, joined with, as always,
And the Chico.
and we're here to break down the Bears game. So we're going to really quickly dive into how they performed, what we liked, what we didn't like. Also, just a side note: Owen is now 1-7 in picking the Cowboys, and I am 6-2 when picking the Cowboys. So, as you can see, that just means he's a hater, and I'm not the hater. So, just wanted to throw that out there. But let's get going. Owen, do you have any exciting breaking news today, or anything that came up during the bye week?
James Washington probably gonna take another week to start his 21-day practice window. Everyone should be healthy. I believe. Micah, as we all know, as we'll get into a little bit later, after his lot of running during this last game, he needed to bye a week more than anyone. And obviously, we're not going to know until later tonight, which we'll get into what we have planned later tonight, a little bit later. But we'll get the injury report like probably a second after we end recording. So after that, we'll get a better idea of what the injuries are like. But also Tristan Hill was cut. We didn't talk about that. He was supposed to be traded, or Dallas wanted to trade him because they have to bring on Terrell Basham back from his injury from week 1, and they did not find a trade suitor, so they cut him, and then he was picked up. I forget by who, but he was picked up rather quickly. Dallas wanted to put him on the on their practice squad, but they were unable to. And Dallas did not make any trades besides Hankins. We all thought that Dallas was going to try to get Brandon Cooks, but personally, after the Steelers traded Chase Claypool for a second-round pick, I did not expect it to happen, especially because the Texans wanted a second-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and for Dallas to take on all of the $18 million cap hit, and that was just unrealistic because Dallas doesn't want to give up that much draft capital and handicap themselves for the next 2 years with cap. But we can get into the trade deadline a little bit later, Ray, if that's something you'd want to talk about. But I think that's all injury report related stuff. So what were your thoughts on the Bears-Cowboys game?
Really quickly, just a quick follow-up question. How many dollars are the Cowboys under the cap?
I believe it's 21, but they also have to take into account if they want to re-sign Tony Pollard. You have to bring back Terrence Steele. As of right now, your franchise right tackle. If they want to bring back Dante Fowler, you can offer CeeDee Lamb a contract this offseason, and he's only going to get more expensive because more teams are going to want him next year when he's a free agent, or I feel he probably has a 5th-year option there somewhere. But if they were to take on the cap hit this year, it'd be fine. But you have Micah coming up, Trayvon Diggs coming up, so that'd be a lot for a guy that's in the back end of his career.
I was just curious on where they were in regarding the cap. I'm not saying they should have
top
taken
5.
Up. I was just curious.
They're top 5 in cap, which is something that we have not seen in years, I think, because ever since Romo retired, they were kind of in the depths of cap until a few years ago. So I don't ever think Dallas is going to handicap themselves, because I know that apparently the Joneses were not pleased with their cap situation. They were very happy with being able to get themselves out of that. And yeah, but who knows with reconstructing contracts, and with the other wide receiver that Dallas has been linked to, which we may touch on a little bit later. We'll we'll see what happens. But any other questions, Ray? Or
Yeah, I mean, no, but I mean, my opinion. I think the keys to Dallas being a true threat to winning a championship, they need to go and spend money on players in free agency or through the trade market. That's what the 49ers are doing. That's what the Rams are doing. That's where really a lot of teams who've wanted to get better. That's what they do. And you know me, I'm just tired with the whole cap nonsense, because we know where the Rams are with cap nonsense and where the 49ers probably will be with cap nonsense. But they're both good. They're both the front, or the Rams won the Super Bowl last year, and the 49ers are a heavy favorite to win it this year with how loaded their roster is. So I just feel like when the Cowboys go into a trade, like the trade deadline's coming up, and there are many different areas where they can improve and players available that can help them improve, and then they go out and get somebody. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but get somebody who in his first few stints has not really helped them improve in the area they needed to improve. Then it's a big problem for me, knowing that it's still an issue and they could have filled a little bit more holes than they ended up doing. But there's still 8-ish games left in the season. That's not including playoffs. So there's still a lot of time to figure out what needs to be figured out. So let's just kind of dive into the Bears game. To answer your question, I mean, the game kind of went as I thought it would go. They won pretty handedly, won by 20 points, easily covering the spread of the game. I really don't know why you picked the Bears to win. That was a interesting play by you. I know you'll probably end up picking the Packers to win later on, which will be another interesting play. But I digress. But just going into a little bit of notes that I took from the game, just go by the box score. Prescott, he had another efficient game passing, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, threw that interception. That kind of changed the game for 5 to 15 minutes. And then he had a rushing touchdown. Fields also efficient, 151, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, no interceptions. Tony Pollard was definitely the splash player of the game. He was my most valuable player for the Cowboys. He was very efficient on the ground. Ran for over 6 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. Him by himself accumulated most of the damage on the ground, whereas in the past it's been him and Zeke getting around 50-50. When he was just by himself, he exploded. The Rams defense, I mean, with them giving up a huge player to the Eagles, with them trading away, I think Roquan. Who did they trade away?
no,
Was it they traded both of them.
The Bears traded Robert Quinn to the
Robert Quinn,
Eagles.
yeah, Robert Quinn, and then they traded Roquan, or got rid of Roquan soon after.
Roquan's a Raven.
Yeah. So the Bears are rebuilding. They're blowing up their team. But I mean, with trading away Robert Quinn, I thought that it made sense that their running defense, as they're slowly giving up talent, got worse. What kind of impressed me though about the Bears was that their secondary did a pretty mainly Eddie Jackson by himself did a pretty good job of making plays. Eddie Jackson was all over the field, breaking up passes, had that interception, and he had a pretty good game by himself. Prescott kind of had anything he wanted in the first half, which is what I was, campaigning for. Our last show was I want him to, take command, start off fast, be efficient, and he was doing that up until the interception. Once he did throw the interception, there were maybe a drive or two where he looked shaky, and that's when the Bears were kind of able to get back into the game. However, he did make a few key throws after those couple of drives, and then they really relied on the running game from there to take them home. Um, they didn't do much passing in the second half. They just kind of relied on Tony Pollard to just chew away the game, and really from then on, we didn't really see much of Dak. But I thought he played well, other than the interception and the couple of drives afterwards. So I'd give him an A. I mean, he pretty much did what I said. You know, the 27 passes for around the 250 to 270 to 300, staying under that 30 passing game, keeping it balanced, and it was overall a good game. But what really alarmed me is the running defense, because once again, as it always has, even though you sent me that, you're slick. You do these things. You send me, you're like, look, Ray, the Dallas defense is not as bad at stopping the run as you expect. And then the next game they go and give up 200 plus on the ground, and I'm like, well, here's the status quo here. They go and get a run stopper for the Raiders, who is ranked, middle of the pack and or below average in that category, and then it shows on the field when he goes out there, and I don't know how many snaps he was actually out there.
If you want, I can give you that. I've been waiting on that to give it. But if
he out there like 2 or 3 or 4, I assume.
He played 42% of the snaps. When he was on the field, Herbert and Montgomery ran for 11 rushes for 39 yards. When he was off, they ran 20 carries for 113 yards, which is 5.7 per run, and they got a touchdown. So in my opinion, when Hankins is there, they were averaging 2.2 less yards per carry. And it was
So did that account with Fields' aid for safety?
It was only with the two running backs, but you can't really dock him, because if it's mostly read options, the D tackles, it's on the ends, not really on the tackle, at least in my opinion. So Hankins, based off the stats, I mean, he did what he's supposed to do. He can't really do much when he's out in the field, and he only played 42%, but that was only his second game for the Cowboys. So hopefully, going up against the Packers, we will see him play upwards of 42%. So to answer your question, or to answer to disagree with your point, he did do what he's supposed to, and he did play well. It's just that, and also 110 of those of the 240 came after the Parsons touchdown. And in my opinion, if you're a team that's up multiple scores, unless Dallas is secondary just close their eyes, the Bears are not going to beat you through passing. And the way that you come back from being down multiple scores is throwing the ball. So if they just wanted to keep running the ball and waste clock, then fine by me. So sure, it's a lot of yards, but almost half came after that Parsons touchdown. And at that point, so yes, I do agree that it's not something you love to see, but also Field is one of the best running, top two with Hurts. And he showed that last week that that was like these past 2 games were like his coming out. So it's not great, but you're not going to be going up against the Justin Fields every week. But I just wanted to say that, and the floor is now yours.
So regardless of him only playing 41 snaps and the rushing,
42% of the snaps.
41%, 42%, whatever it is of the snaps. I don't really understand why I wasn't playing more, unless he was not, because at D tackle, I'm not going to act like I know how much they have to prep, but they're not like, I guess they have to learn like stunts and such, but it's not like he's learning, an offensive playbook where he's got to learn, routes and all that stuff. Like I feel like that he needs to be, if he is making a 2-yard difference, I feel like he should be on the field more, and hopefully he is on the field more, and we do see an improvement there. But in my opinion, the fact that he's not out there is a disservice if he is especially playing well. But it is one sample size of game, so we really can't judge um, if he's the difference or if he is the problem.
I mean, how could he be a problem?
Through one game, we can't judge if he's a difference or a problem.
Well, no, yeah. Well, this is his second game that he's played, and if you're just going off of this, like the stats are, they're.
I mean, the Cowboys have given up 150 plus yards on the ground 2 games in a row, and
Mm-hmm.
they've
And if
always given and that's been their Achilles heel for the last 3 or 4 seasons,
yeah,
and they've been trying and trying and trying to get it resolved, and they haven't gotten it resolved. And when you have teams like the Eagles and the 49ers who run it all over people, and they're probably going to be the teams you draw in the playoffs, it's a huge problem because
yeah, it is.
Christian McCaffrey is going to run all over them because he is a way better running back than Herbert and Montgomery combined, and they need to get it fixed. So that's why I'm saying if he is the difference that you're looking for, he needs to be on the field every 60% of the time. And the fact that he's only out there 40% of the time is a problem. And hopefully Dan Quinn over time gets him out there more because he is going to be a better difference in the people who have shown that they're not able to do that consistently.
Well, his first weekend, he didn't. I forget what day Dallas traded for him, but we didn't really know if he was going to play against the Lions, and then he did. And I don't have in front of me what the rushing stats were against him, but he's only been in the building for maybe 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, and both the Raiders and the Cowboys run a 4-3 defense. So I understand what you're saying, but I have no idea what the difference is that Quinn teaches for D tackles or the D line coach and the Raiders D line coach. But same thing for, well, I do like that I do like that they kind of eased them in because he wasn't really coming off of that much practice with Dallas week 1 and then with this, but with the bye week and everything this week and then having a full week to prep, I would like to see him, like you said, play upwards of 42%. But off of this small sample size, I think that he played well. And
Okay, just a
also,
quick point of order. The Cowboys did not give up 150 plus yards against the Lions, but that was mainly because the Lions only carried the ball 17, 21, 22, 25 times. So they averaged around 5 yards a carry for just around 100 yards. So they didn't give up 150 yards, but their yards per carry was below average for a good run defense team. Just a quick
and
fact check because that sounded a little bit off.
And you're the one that he only played 42% in this game, so I would assume that he played less than 42% last week. So we'll see if he plays more this week or on Sunday. And it's an evening game. It's a midday game, so we'll see what happens there.
305.
325.
Probably going to be America's game of the week, even though the Packers are straight garbage right now. So
yeah, well, I think that Aaron Rodgers, we'll get into this later tonight, but I think that Aaron Rodgers, I think he enjoys the fact that he has the Cowboys in a chokehold. And I also think that this is the first time that he's going up against McCarthy post Green Bay. So I think that he has a lot to prove in that regard.
I don't even think it's going to matter because they're like the Packers are just so bad on offense. They don't have people who can. They have nobody on the caliber of even CeeDee Lamb, who I don't think is that great, but he's still the best receiver on the field for both teams. And I mean, even that, like Devontae Adams, their entire receiving core does not add up to a Devontae Adams. So I really don't see what Aaron Rodgers is going to do, especially because the Cowboys defense is going to be able to consistently get in his face because they're just so great at bringing pressure from Parsons just alone. But I mean, not to get away from the Bears game, so we can save that for
No,
later. But
yeah, for sure. I did
yeah,
want to comment on the Dak interception. I think that was just being too aggressive. I don't expect Dallas to ever do that in the 2 minute drill. Um, so would we have? Could he have not thrown it? Sure, but I just think that it was him being too aggressive. But I did like the throw, the touchdown to CeeDee Lamb. I thought that was like a pretty tight window. Well, it was getting tighter, and I thought that was a really good throw. And it was good to see that Dak and CD, at least for last week, were on the same page. I like that they got Michael Gallup in early, giving him some targets because he was targetless, I believe, against the Lions, or he did not have many targets. Um, and uh, again, the rookie tight ends, they did well. I think that week by week they're showing that Dalton Schultz is expendable, which is good for Dallas. And yeah, I thought that Dallas played a good game. Obviously Tony Pollard having the best game of his career, and he's the first running back to have a 3 touchdown game since Joseph Randall, I believe. And talk about running backs that had potential. CeeDee Lamb went 5 for 77, or 5 catches, 77 yards and touchdown. But I think the most surprising part of this whole game was how much Damone Clark played. Coming off of IR with the neck issue. I don't know what the medical term for it is, but he did have 5 tackles and 1 solo tackle, and he did play a lot longer than I expected. And also one comment, Dallas's safety room was banged up. Hooker was not he was inactive. And then you had Jaron Curse, who was in and out of the blue tent. So this week, the bye week was really good for the team as a whole. But I think that it's great that a player who Ray did not think was even going to touch the field this year is able to make an impact in his first NFL game. And I was also doing some research a while ago just to see. And Damone Clark, if you put his stats, college stats, up against N'Kobe Dean, they're pretty similar. And in some aspects, Clark outplayed him. And obviously, Dean played better in some. And if Ray wants to go more into that in another episode, I'll put up the stats and show. But I thought that it was good to be able to see him play and make an impact. And hopefully he will be able to play more in the future and get more reps. And I think that for once, there's a lot of youth on this team, and the linebacker room, like, we haven't even really seen much from Jabril Cox, and hopefully we will soon or in the next few weeks. But I thought that was good to be able to see him play. Thoughts, Ray?
Yeah, it's great to see him on the field. Um, like I will be happily wrong when saying that I don't think a player is going to contribute because of an injury. And then I'll be happily wrong to see him on the field. So like I have no problem with that. But I mean, it just kind of goes to show back to what I say about drafting and how teams should not draft because of how scared they are about a player's injury. Obviously, the Cowboys, when they evaluated him, were like, this is not as bad as what everybody else is saying, and we can get him out there in like half of the time expected. So, I mean, it just kind of shows the whole, like, the bubble of we can't draft someone because of this or this or this. Like the same thing with Jermaine Johnson, how he was a top 10, top 5, top 10 overall grade, and he fell to all the way down to 18 or 19, and he's contributing for a really great Jets defense. So it's just like, why are you letting players fall so far down the line just because of some injury concern or effort concern, or he's too small for our scheme, or he's too big for our scheme, or he doesn't run fast enough for our scheme? It makes no sense to me. And that's just one thing that overall bothers me about GMs and how people run like evaluate personnel. So that's just all I'll say on that.
Well, for Clark, a neck issue you're kind of going to want to stay away from. Well, not in later rounds, but like he
Well,
was
I mean,
supposed to be.
obviously, it wasn't worth staying away from because he's contributing way before anyone expected him to contribute.
He was
So
a
if that's the
sixth
case,
round
that's
pick,
on your. And he was a 6th round pick
but
who, from
he
what you
was supposed to
said,
be
produced
top two
numbers
round.
top two. So he's a projected sixth
He
round
was supposed.
pick with round 1, round 2 upside.
Yeah, if he did not, if he was before injury, he was looking like one of the top linebackers, and then he got
Yeah,
injured, and he had a similar injury to Leighton Vander Esch, and Leighton Vander Esch, he's the neck
leads the
issue
team in
has come
tackles.
back. Yeah, and he had a really good game. I thought that the forced fumble was because of him that led to the Michael Parsons touchdown, and I think that he's been playing a lot better. He's showing signs of 2018 Leighton
I
Vander
mean, what the
Esch.
Cowboys have always done really well, especially in the last 6, 7 years, is evaluate linebacker talent.
Yeah,
I mean, Sean Lee was one of the best linebackers while he was playing. The problem was he couldn't stay on the field,
yeah,
and he led the team in tackles religiously every year that he played. And then they bring in Leighton Vander Esch, who's doing the same thing. He was a sideline to sideline linebacker, and what we're now seeing is that he's actually healthy, so he's able
yeah.
to contribute. Um, Micah Parsons is just on another level. We don't really need to discuss him. And then, I mean, Jabril Cox has not really played much, but he has the linebacking room is so deep that he doesn't really need to play. And
Yeah.
then I guess Damian Clark, um, if he, I mean, you're saying he has numbers on par with N'Kobe Dean
In college, he
in
did. Yeah.
college. So,
I don't think that
like
Kobe
my
Dean's
whole
played much this year.
yeah, I looked. He hasn't really played much, but the Eagles are also loaded in their
Yeah.
linebacker room as well. So I'm
Yeah,
not
they
going to
are.
necessarily
No,
hold that
not at all.
against it.
Not
But
at all.
it just goes back to like if he went in the 6th round. Obviously, a neck is a huge issue. I mean, Sean Lee struggled with the neck injury. Lane Vander Esch has had neck issues. So and also the neck is just a very important, like it's
Yeah.
an injury that you're not supposed to take lightly. But I mean, he's out there in half of the time expected. I mean, some analysis was 2 years, and he's out there in less than a year. So what I'm saying is, if you have a player who has a round 1 or round 2 talent, one of the best linebackers in the class, and he's falling to the 6th round because people are afraid he's not going to play in 3 years, I think that's a problem because we're seeing he's played. He's made his debut in week 9 or week 8, and that's 12, 14, 15, 16 months ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
So I just think that a lot of teams need to reevaluate how they evaluate players in the draft. That's just my
I 100% understand. I think that for some teams it could be like I want a guy that's going to make an immediate impact, or just some players don't, or some. So I don't. It all depends on the different teams. But I'm very happy that Dallas has him, that he's able to make because in the next few years their linebacking room is going to be really, really like very deep with young players because you're going to have Luke Gifford, who he's just a special teams guy now. Van Der Esch he's a free agent after this year, so who really knows what's going to happen there? And then you have Cox, Clark, and they'll probably draft some other guys. So I know that in years past we've kind of been like, well, if this guy goes down, then we're kind of doomed. But it was good to see that the team was able to still play well with key players going down.
yeah. There's one thing I do want to point out that was very. I mean, that was really important to me watching the game. That was different because just it kind of around that area where the Dallas did go up 28-7, and I thought the game was over. You thought the game was over. I kind of um, turned my brain off and started doing other things. And then I look up and the score is 28-17 going into half. And then first drive out of the gate, the Bears score a touchdown. Not sure why they decided to go for two. That's just beyond me. There's still so much time left in the game. And they didn't get it, but it was still 28-23, 5-point game. And it looked like the wheels were coming off. And we're like, oh, here we go again. Cowboys are going to blow this huge lead that they had, just like they did against the Lions way back when, just like they did against the Packers way back when, just like they did against any team, you name it, where the defense gives up. The other team's offense gets 3 straight touchdowns, defense goes implodes and shambles. We're out here the next Monday, like what the heck happened? We're doomed. And the very next drive, I mean, the Cowboys, they go 3 and out. No, they win, score a touchdown. It was the long Pollard run. So they increased the lead to 13 or 14, either one. And then the very next drive, Van Der Esch forces the fumble. Parsons recovers it, takes it to the house, and all of a sudden we're back up 21 points, and it's like, okay, never mind. I can go back to doing nothing. So what that kind of showed me is the Cowboys defense this year and the previous year, they're way better than any defense the Cowboys have thrown out there 2011 through however you want to go forward, just because they're making crucial key stops when they need to. 2, they're taking the ball away super high. People expected their takeaways to fall off, but they're right on pace with what they were last year, and that's without Diggs getting 2 interceptions a game. And, looking like he's going to break the all-time interception record for a single season. He's not doing that anymore, but they're still getting turnovers. And overall, other than their run defense, which is still atrocious, they're getting teams off the field. They're not giving up a lot of points. And it's allowing their offense to make mistakes and go on little slumps, and the defense is still able to kind of be there to handle it. Because in the past, and early Dak era, Romo era, the offense had no room for error. So if they kind of ran out of gas for a little bit, we're like, oh, here goes the other team scoring. Here goes Matt Flynn throwing for 5 touchdown passes as a backup quarterback for the Packers. Or
I remember that
Matt
game. It
Stafford
was so
throwing
bad.
4 touchdowns in the second half, and we're now going to lose. But so that's just my thoughts. I'm glad that the Cowboys defense is now at a spot to where they're one of the more formidable defenses, because for the longest time they were considered as a doormat pretty much. So it's nice
even
to
2
see
years
that,
ago,
and it's a lot. Yeah, 2 years ago when they were the worst
all-time
statistical
bad
defense of all time. Yeah. So it's nice to see that the offense and the defense are more compatible and are able to kind of feed off of each other and pick up slack where the other is not.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that that Dan Quinn has been a great addition. Gets a lot of hate, but I do think that McCarthy has done his job. Because even if you look at this year, and I know that Ray and I have talked about this before, 2050, I'm only going to use it because of backups, but in years that they were back, and you could go back to this because even you watched a lot more of Romo play than I did, but when Romo went down, was there any chance that Dallas was going to win that game?
No, because their defense was not good enough
Yeah.
to help them out.
Yeah, and I do like that they're able to have a chance, and I think that all 3 main coaches, so McCarthy, Kellen, as much as he can be a little sometimes, I think that he started the game off really well, and then Dan Quinn. I think that this year, if they can keep on doing what they're doing, they're going to be. I think this is the first time in a few weeks, I could be wrong, that they're going up against, or the Packers game, they're going up against a really good quarterback, and lesser pieces. The running game is really good with Dillon and Jones was seen in a walking boot. Bakhtiari, I believe, was seen in they're injured, so players coming out of that game with injuries. Rashawn Gary, their defensive end, tore his either ACL or Achilles, so hopefully he comes back healthy for next year. So Dallas does not have to go up against him, he's a really good pass rusher. So we'll see what happens, but I do think, Ray, I know that you did not agree, but I do think that Aaron Rodgers he holds grudges, and I do think that this win for him, I do think that he likes that he's owned Dallas and he's crushed the fans' hopes and dreams 2016, 2014.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he liked crushing the Lions every year and ruining their fans' dreams, and he laid an absolute goose egg
He
against
did.
them. So, I mean,
And he blamed everyone else but himself.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay because he's not my quarterback, and we're about to blow him out by 14 plus. So I've
think
zero.
so.
I've
On
I
the
have
record.
zero
Okay.
on the record. We will win by 14 points, and I do not fear Aaron Rodgers this next week. I do not fear the Packers next week because I know that Matt LaFleur is getting exposed as a fraud. He won't run the ball because he likes to. He won't. They won't. Whoever it is, Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur refuse to run the ball give the ball to Aaron Jones. It baffles me. I don't know why they choose not to. Whenever they give him the ball, he makes people look dumb on defenses. They won't do it. And Aaron Jones, he might not even play because he's in a walking boot, so that doesn't really matter. But they rely too much on their overrated wide receiving talent. They don't really have anybody who can beat the Cowboys secondary, regardless of my opinion on Trayvon Diggs or Anthony Brown. So,
what's your opinion on Diggs?
You know my opinion on Diggs.
I thought it improved.
He has improved. He has improved, and I've said that. But you know my overall opinion on Trayvon Diggs. He's a gambler. And he's a lot better with his ball skills than his coverage skills. His coverage skills have improved, but he's still a gambler, in my opinion. And we saw it last week against the Bears. He absolutely got his ankles taken from him by the biggest bust in Patriots wide receiver history, N'Keal Harry. So that's just that happened. I watched it on my screen. I watched a replay on my screen, which is really funny.
All corners get beat. I saw Sauce Gardner get beat a few times. But then he's apparently the next best thing.
But then he also made the play of the game.
And Trayvon Diggs almost caught an interception if it wasn't for a nonsense passing or roughing the passer, I believe. So
maybe the roughing.
It don't. I think I do understand.
Also, who has the Trayvon Diggs jersey and who doesn't?
I don't buy jerseys because last time I did, I bought a Leighton Van Der Esch jersey and he did not have a good sophomore. He didn't have his years after the 2018 season was not that great, so I retired it.
That's great, but I mean, if I hated the guy, I would not have bought his jersey.
I don't think you hate him. I'm not trying to change or understand.
Criticism.
No, and I do think that he has had, and I think his worst game of the year was the Rams game by far. He got beat deep, and then he also got beat on a shallow under route that was taken out of the house, and he kind of he tried to jump the pass, and it didn't work. So yeah, that was his worst game of the season so far. But I do think, and most of his yards, I think he's at like 320. I check every week just to make sure. He's at like 320 yards given up this year,
which is on pace to be a huge improvement. I'm happy for him.
It is, and so we'll see as he continues and gets better. Because if he's on this path, if he continues on this path, on this trajectory path, then. But I do agree. I do think, like in 2 months from now, when you and I start talking about the draft, I think the number one draft need is a second cornerback. But we can get into that. Like this is like a call forward to like 3 months from now.
But overall, I think my whole point was the Packers, Trayvon Diggs should not be afraid of anybody who's going to be lined up opposing him.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I will go.
Unless Aaron Rodgers lines up wide receiver.
I
You
will.
could see
I will
Jordan Love throw
still
the ball.
campaign. I will still campaign that Trayvon Diggs would be a way better second corner than a first corner.
Yeah, it would be nice
If
to
they
have a
got a
lockdown
true
guy.
if they got a true coverage corner and not allowed Diggs to just play his style of football, I feel like he would be so much more dangerous than he is right now. And I will ride that point on and on and on forever and ever.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree. It's hopefully there are a lot of good corners in this draft this year. So hopefully, unless I doubt Dallas is going to trade up, Jerry's been talking like they want to sell every pick they have. And they obviously did not do that. But I don't think that there was any player that was worth a first that would have been beneficial. I mean, Chubb would have been nice, but you got to give him a really big contract.
I mean,
Um,
I'm sure that that the Cowboys can get a solid coverage corner late first round.
yeah, and
I don't think that
I
would be a
hope so.
problem.
And that is the hope, and hopefully they're able to do that. 'Cause I think that'd be very beneficial. Yeah, you'd
Truth
let
be told, I really do not like Anthony Brown and would not mind getting rid of him.
he played well last year. I don't understand what because he did have a good training camp. I don't really understand what happened now. And the issue is that your second round pick last year, Calvin Joseph, just I don't know what's up with him. He's really good on punt coverage. I'll give him that. Really good at special teams, but
I
you'd
knew
like to
he
see
was. I
him.
knew he was the wrong pick from the start. They should have gotten Asante Samuel, the third or junior, whoever his name is, because he would have been
He's junior. Well,
yeah.
we all like things, but Dan Quinn has a certain mold that he likes for cornerbacks, and Asante Samuel Jr. To your point 10 minutes ago, he does not fit the mold. As you know, Dan Quinn likes tall corners with long arms, and Asante Samuel is like 5'11", and he does not have long arms. I'd assume if he's 5'11", but Kelvin Joseph is probably upwards of 6 foot, and even going back to his Seattle days, Richard Sherman was above 6 foot. Um, Browning was above 6 foot. Both of his safeties, I'd assume, were big guys. So he has a mold, which is why they drafted the corner in the third round so high. I forget his
I
name.
think they should just get rid of Kelvin Joseph now because he's not making an impact in the secondary. Duron Bland made some nice plays last week. I did not include him in the notes, but now that we're talking about secondary, once again, my favorite player from the preseason is making an impact in the regular, in replacement of Jordan Lewis, and as I predicted, instead of bringing out, doing all their shuffling and bringing Kelvin Joseph seeing more time, Duron Bland is the guy who saw more playing time. So,
and as they should have done.
So, like, if you're gonna hold Kelvin Joseph on your team and not play him, then why even hold on to him? That's what I'm wondering.
Because he's a good special teams guy.
Well, but I mean, he's a second round caliber player who you drafted basically to play special teams, and I don't really think that
he would have been a first round pick if he didn't get kicked out. If he didn't,
and
it would never happen
at
school.
And it would have been one of the biggest busts since Morris Claiborne. So, luckily, he did not go in the first round.
You think he'd be more of yeah? Well, Morris Claiborne Dallas traded up for him, I believe, and so
it was considered overall as a failure because he was hurt most of the time and didn't really do much when he was on the field. So
remember when the Jets picked him up? What a time!
I didn't. He got an interception, I think.
So who knows? Players always do better when they're outside of Dallas, but. Ray, anything you want to add before we dive into the fun news of the episode?
Yes. Or no. I do not. No.
So recently, Ray and I have put on our networking caps, and we've been trying for the past few weeks to figure out how we can add a second guest because our first guest went so well, and we're very thankful for him, and maybe in the future, if things go well, we always love to have him back. So for this upcoming week, or tonight we'll be recording it at 7 Central Time, the well-known, let me pull up his exact so that everyone knows, Mario Power Ups. He's a very, very well-known in the Dallas Twitter community, very big Twitter presence. He will be joining us, and we're very grateful and looking forward to having him on. And Ray and I, networking skills, Baylor would be proud.
Yes, Baylor would be proud of our ability to network on Twitter. They would be over the moon.
Yes, they would be.
Quite excited.
And yes. And for anyone listening, you may be like, where's the Odell talk? The Odell talk will be tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time. We will also get into
sneak peek for the Odell talk. The Cowboys will not be signing Odell.
I don't know. We'll get into that. He did mention that apparently Michael Irvin, who I'll trust him, he said that Odell's wanted to come here for years, and he did say that the 4 teams that he listed, Dallas was one of them. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
If Michael Irvin was running the team, then I'd say, yeah, he's coming. But it's Jerry and Steven, and they don't like to improve.
Jerry did say, to be fair, Jerry's talked more about Odell than he's talked about some other free agents in the past. And obviously having to play him twice a year before his times in Cleveland or the Rams, do I think it'll happen? We'll see, but I think that it would be a very good addition because it would allow CD and Michael Gallup.
When does Odell? Actually, let's just keep that for later. I'll ask you after the show.
Okay. So, well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We know that the Bears game was a little late, but tests and studying. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And Ray, do you have any final words of wisdom to leave for everyone else?
Stopping the run is the key to victory. So hopefully the Cowboys take that to heart and stop the run next week. We'll talk about that in a couple hours.
Yes, we will, because we're going up against one of the better rushing games, and then 2 weeks from now going up against Dalvin Cook. So Dallas is going to be tested, which I think is a good thing, because the only team that they're not really going to be able to play, if they make it to the playoffs, they're going to get another look at.
Etienne is coming too.
Yes, they're going to get another look at. They're going to get another look at the Eagles, and they're not going to be able to play the 49ers. They already beat the Rams, so I mean we can talk about this a little bit to later.
Huh? The Rams are one of the worst running teams in the
No,
NFL.
I meant just like powerhouses for the NFC. Maybe tonight we'll talk about.
I don't even think the Rams are going to make the playoffs. That's kind of a disappointment.
Which is good for the Lions because they have their first round pick. So we will get into that later tonight. But we hope that everyone will be able to tune in. And Ray, anything you want to say?
Nope, I'm good. Check out Twitter on Sunday.
Yes. Go Cowboys.
See you in a little bit, guys. Go Cowboys.